Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are joining us from, and welcome to the virtual Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. My name is Jason Blitman. I'm the program director for the Lambert Center for Arts and Ideas here at the JCC, and I am so thrilled to welcome you to the first Culture Passport event of this year. We hope you'll be able to join us for other upcoming programs, including our next Culture Passport coming up later in March. You can learn about that and all of our other upcoming programs on our website, mmjccm.org. Conversations at the JCC are made possible by Zabars and Zabars.com, and virtual programs for the Lambert Center are made possible by the generous support of the Lori M. Tisch Illumination Fund. There should be time for some questions at the end, so please feel free to write any questions that you may have in the chat at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to tap them in as we go along so you don't forget them. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our guides for today. Dani Rotstein, CEO and founder of Jewish Mallorca, which does virtual tours all around the world, who we are so excited to partner with on this and many of our Culture Passports this season. He is joining us live from Quito, Ecuador at the Casa Museo Trude Sojka. Dani is joined by Anita Steinitz, daughter of Trude Sojka, who is the founder and director of the Casa Museo, which she created in 2009. She's worked as a professor and translator in Paris and at the French Embassy in Ecuador. Anita studied visual arts, art history, linguistics, translation, political sciences, and international relations in the United States and France. We are also joined by Anita's daughter, Gabriela Steinitz, who is the granddaughter of Trude Sojka and is the co-founder of the museum. She is in charge of its collections. Gabriela studied visual arts in France and the Czech Republic and museology, and I look forward to hearing more about that, at the, oh gosh, a word that I cannot pronounce, and we'll hear more about where she studied museology at an institute in Spain. Please welcome Dani, Gabriela, and Anita.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here with you. And we welcome you very warmly to the Trude Sojka House Museum. Please welcome.
So thankful for Jason and for Matt and everyone at the Marlene Meyerson JCC for having us. And yeah, we're calling in live from Quito, Ecuador. A couple things you should know about this presentation. This is the first time we're all doing this. So everyone should feel super VIP. But of course that goes along with technical stuff that might come up with internet issues. So please be understanding. The idea is that it's going to be about a 45, 50-minute presentation. We're actually going to get a tour from Anita, and Gabi will be here looking at questions that pop up of this incredible house and this incredible story that we're so excited to share with you all. A couple things. While we're going through the tour, please put those questions that come up. So at the end, we have a whole slew of questions and answers that both Gabi and Jason can handle. And I think the first thing we wanted to do was show a map, right? To show where we are. So we'll go ahead and do that. And Gabi or Anita, feel free to speak over the map that we're sharing.
So yeah, this is Ecuador. In the about the center of South America, and we're in the capital of Ecuador, Quito. It's very high up. It's about 2,800 meters high, and we're in the neighborhood of La Floresta. And La Floresta is a traditional neighborhood that was and we are in the heart of this neighborhood where a lot of Jewish people, after and during World War II, immigrated and built their houses here, and they look European, just like our house. So in that houses from a neighborhood from the 1950s.
So I think now it will be time to move.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we are going to move to another roving camera. Matt, you'll see us pop up in a second, and we're going to test audio as we go outside. And Gabi can maybe keep talking a little bit more the project as Anita and I go outside right now.
So yes, right here we are in the second floor of the Casa Museo Trude Sojka, the Trude Sojka House Museum. And we created, well, my mother created this house. Well, it was the family's house. And she founded the Casa Cultural Trude Sojka, the cultural center Trude Sojka, where she had many activities, concerts, exhibits, all kinds of workshops, and it was the idea was to have lots of different activities. After the pandemic, I studied and administration of museums. So I wanted to, with my mother, to turn this culture center into a museum. And so now it's different.
Okay, so should I talk right now, right? So, okay, this is the Trude Sojka House Museum, and I'm very sorry there is the construction that's so noisy here, but I hope you can hear me. This house was built like 70 years ago, and by my parents, Hans and Hans Steinitz and Trude Sojka. And when my mother died in 2009, I decided to open this house to the public so as to promote the life and the work of my mother, who was an artist and also a Holocaust survivor and an example of resilience. And another of our aims when creating this house was to promote peace and hope in the world. So I think that the first thing to do is to very quickly tell you a bit about my mother's life. So Gertrude Sojka, or Trude Sojka, was born in 1909 in Berlin within a very wealthy and very educated Jewish family. She studied at the Fine Arts Academy in Berlin, and in 1938 she married a Slovak Jew. Everything was going fine, but well, Hitler came to power, the Second World War was pending, and Trude and her first husband, Desider Schwartz, decided to go to Nitra, a Slovak city, to try to be there. Maybe it would be less dangerous, they thought. However, in 1944, both were arrested by the Nazis and deported to Auschwitz and other concentration camps. Desider died there. And I think then we could go inside this small room to tell you the rest of my mother's.
Well, better to hear because I'm not sure the internet. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Let's continue here.
Okay, so both of them, as I said, were arrested and deported to Auschwitz. My mother, who had entered the camp pregnant, lost sight of her husband, and she was taken to other camps, and especially almost at the end of the war, to Kleinschonau in Poland, where she gave birth to a baby girl that died shortly after. The war was over, Trude was liberated, and she went to Prague to try to find out something about the family. Of course, she didn't find anything, but she learned that there was a brother of hers, Walter Sojka, who was living here in Ecuador and decided to come to Ecuador. And in 1946, she was able to do so. She met my future uncle, let's say, Walter Sojka, and a friend of his, a German Jew, Hans Steinitz, who became her own friend, and little by little, more than friends, until in 1948, they got married. Yes, that's Walter Sojka, and this is Anne Steinitz. Both got married in 48, and they created their new family. And the most important thing, Trude Sojka, who had been an artist in Europe, began again here to paint, to do sculptures, but in a very unusual way. She used concrete and also recycled materials. And that's something special because in the 50s, nobody used recycled materials. People liked new things. We can see here some of her art. I don't know if you want me to tell you something about the.
There's one question about the story or the history you're sharing that we can just take right now.
Sure.
When and how did your uncle get married?
Okay, I was going to tell you that later, but I'll do it now. My uncle, Walter Sojka, was a renowned scientist. He was a chemist, and the University of Cuenca, a little city here in Ecuador, had invited him in 38 so that he could become professor of the university. And since he saw what was happening in Europe, he said yes. And he traveled at the end of 38 to Ecuador and became first professor in Cuenca and then professor at the Central University, the main university here in Quito.
Great. And can you tell a little bit about, was it only your mother and your uncle, or were there other German Jews who also got visas to come to Ecuador?
Well, my mother, she came after, right, the war in 46. But I think that from 38 to 1950 even, there were like 4,000 Jews that came to this country. A lot of them had, like my father, I can tell you a little bit about
Sure.
my father.
Please.
Then. They had obtained visas from Ecuadorian consuls that deserve, I think, to be named or awarded the recognition of righteous among the nations. For example, my father. My father was a German Jew who, at that famous Kristallnacht, in November 38, had been arrested together with his mother, with my grandmother, and taken to the concentration camp of Sachsenhausen, not far away from Berlin. Some friends of him contacted the Ecuadorian consul in Bremen, whose name was Jose Ignacio Burbano, that's his name. And he gave my father a visa to come to Ecuador, and he even helped him get a job in the port of Guayaquil. So he saved my father's life. And this man, he not only helped my father, but I know that 40 Jewish families settled here in Ecuador thanks to the visas that he gave him. So yes. And there is another man, Manuel Antonio Borrero, who was also a consul, a diplomat. He was working in Stockholm, in Sweden, and he saved the life of 263 Jews by giving them, again, diplomatic visa, passports, different visas, so that they could flee Europe and come to Ecuador.
Wow. Do you know why he did that?
Well, I think the righteous among the nations, they were very altruistic, good people, and they didn't, disinterested people who wanted to help. They saw that there was something very unjust and terrible in all the situation, and they didn't care, risking their careers. Both these two diplomats, they lost their jobs. Some of them risked their families, even their lives, to help others.
Wow. So tell us about this house.
Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you first, maybe we can now come in,
Sure.
is that when my parents built this house, they built it in a very European style, right? It's 70 years old, but it's still very beautiful. And however, they still felt all the fear, all the trauma of the war. And so they built themselves a secret room, a kind of shelter. And this used to be just like a bookshelf.
That went all the way to the
That,
top.
right. And I just, turned it into a door because it was easier to open and close. So we could come in. And then I think you could show the video, right?
Yes.
But anyway, I like the room. There you go.
So if you can hear me, we're going to try and go in the room. The internet's not great. Gabby, let us know if we cut out.
We
Oren, do you see that bookshelf? Do you think something's there? Let's go see. Action. Go. Go here. Oh. What's inside? Is that a secret room? Wow. Is this a hiding place? Wow.
What is this?
That is a stove. They came here in case they had to hide. They had a stove, and this was a door out to escape. And now Anita has turned this into a memorial for the Holocaust.
Well, so you want me to explain a little bit about?
Yeah, about the room, and like what they had in there. It was
Okay.
apparently an escape room. They want to know where that took them, that type of stuff.
Right. So my parents kept here things like drinkable water that they would change periodically. Also tin cans, blankets, a lantern, whatever. Just in case something might happen. It's way crazy because nothing would happen. But it shows you how much fear they felt. And in this room, as I think you saw, I have placed some photos from the Holocaust so that people will remember. It's like a small memorial.
So there was a question in the chat. The escape door in the room. Where does that lead to?
Okay, the escape door. Who will answer? Okay, the escape door leads to the other side of the garden, right? So it was thought like that, that if something happens, they could escape, they would hide. Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is the only Holocaust memorial that is in Ecuador right now?
Well, there is a Jewish cemetery, and there is a very small memorial, which is mainly, it's like a beautiful wall with the names of different concentration camps.
Wow.
And I think that's the only one that exists, because no, I don't know any other one.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Let's continue on the tour.
Sure. Okay, so my mother, she used art as a therapy. She never talked about the Holocaust, about her experience, but she did so with her art. So I would like you to see the studio where she worked. So this is a small room that remains just like she had it when she lived. And I think an interesting thing here is that she always worked with music. And here you can see the record player, something that doesn't exist anymore, but it's fun. It works perfectly well still. And I don't know if perhaps you want to see now some of my mother's artworks.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. And we could take questions as they come and go. We're imagining like we're on a real tour with you. So
right.
If people have questions, they can ask them. But
right.
this is the studio just as it was.
Just as it was. And the way my mother worked is that she would place her support, which could be either metal or wood on top of this table. And then she would play with concrete and mix it with a resin, the kind of resin that my uncle invented for her, so that everything remained together. And she would model, she had to work very fast because concrete dries in minutes. And that helped with, like the healing process, because she wasn't, she couldn't think, she just did things. And so that's why you can see that the work is very spontaneous. And since she always worked with music, it has a lot of rhythm, it has a lot of movement, right? The first things she did when she came to Ecuador after the Holocaust were paintings and sculptures that had to do with the Holocaust. So maybe we can just see one of them. This one is called, of course, towards the gas chambers. But Trude Sojka, when she arrived in Ecuador, she thought she was in paradise. This was a beautiful country, full of color and with a lot of diversity. She loved everything. This country. Maybe we can see this painting here. It depicts the spirit of the forest. This is the spirit that protects the jungle. And this is, of course, the Amazon jungle.
What year was this made?
Let me see, I think it was made here in 83. And there is one thing that through this Sojka. Sojka means, it's a word in Czech that means a bird. So here, this artwork here, this plate, is the phoenix bird arising from the ashes. And we adopted this as our logo because we thought this is like Trude Sojka. You can see the beak, the head, the body. It's a bird that's, the phoenix bird died, but the new bird is arising from the ashes into a new life. And we thought this is exactly like Trude Sojka. She was reborn to a new life after the Holocaust. And something that's interesting here is that it uses a lot of recycling material. This is a lid of a garbage can.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of these so far from the 80s, 80, 81, and she built this house in 1950. Can you tell us a little bit about 1950 to 1980?
Well, most of the, from 1950 to 1970, are artworks that have to do with the Holocaust. Because as I told you before, she never talked really about her experience, but she needed to just, take out all the, and the way she did it is with her artworks. And a lot of the artworks that we find at that period have to do with the Holocaust. So here we have an exhibit that's called Expressionism, Colors That Dance. In this exhibit, we can see artworks that have a lot of movement, that are related, right, to dance, and that are all expressionist artworks. Maybe this one is interesting. This is not so much a dancing thing, but it's called Reconciliation. And I think it's important. When my mother came to Ecuador, she felt very guilty. She thought, why am I alive? And so many people, so many dear ones have died. By doing this artwork, which depicts two figures that are, they're anonymous, but they are hugging each other. She started to forgive herself, to forgive life, and the process of resilience that helped her become a happy person at the end of her life. So I think this is very important.
Beautiful.
I don't know if you want to see other paintings here, or maybe we go upstairs.
Sure, but before we maybe take this room to tell us a little bit about the renovation you did. Like, what was this room before it was?
Oh, sure. Okay, actually, this whole floor was my mother's workshop, my mother's studio, because when I remodeled the house, I turned it upside down. We enter now from what used to be the backyard. And we'll see upstairs when we go upstairs where was the main room, the entrance, etc. And so my mother in this room, she kept all the recycled material that she was going to use in her paintings and in her sculptures. So yes, actually this used to be two rooms because my mother needed a lot of space. Yes. Okay. Okay, so this used to be our first floor, let's say, where we had here the living room. This was our dining room, and you can see the main door was here. Right. The reason why I changed everything is just because this street where the main entrance used to be is very busy and it's very loud. So it's difficult to come in and out, right?
This almost looks like a little sukkah you have here.
Yes.
Okay, so I see this is the front door.
Right.
To the main
Uh-huh.
street. One of the people is asking, do both of you still live in this house?
Yes, we do. We've always considered this house our home. And so for a while after my mother died, we went to live in another place, but we missed this house too much. So we came back, and now we're living in a little apartment here in this house.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how your parents got this house? Because it's quite a large house, and I understand if they came after the Holocaust, they wouldn't have had so many funds, not a lot of things to carry with them.
Well, I think that my parents, they wanted to live in this neighborhood, La Floresta, because their friends were living here. And my father was working when they came to Quito, right? He was starting to work with Usica, which was an Ecuadorian company that exported and imported different, refrigerators. How do you say that? All these industrial, right? So things like that. And so he was able to borrow money from the Social Security. And it's funny because he bought this, they bought, both of them, this house for the sum of 33,000 sucres, which right when now we use the dollar, right? But when the sucre was still being used, the currency, in 2000, 25,000 sucres was $1.
Wow.
The sucre had been so much devaluated. My parents had, borrowed this money, and they could pay it in 30 years. So you see, it's at the end of their debt, they have nothing to pay almost.
Wow.
It's funny.
Unbelievable. So we have about 10, 15 minutes of the tour.
Oh, so let's,
questions and answers. So please.
I want to just show you this corner. This corner is a little bit like my mother's biography. And in here, maybe there's one thing that's interesting is this paper. This is a document that shows that's the invitation or the message that my uncle Walter sent to my mother, and that changed her life because it made her come to Ecuador.
And
right?
it says the Red Cross.
It was sent through the Red Cross. And my mother and my father kept this, and so I think it's one of the most important papers we have here. My uncle Walter Sojka, when he came to Ecuador, he became professor at the university. But his wife Liddy, she traveled around Ecuador and discovered the beautiful handicrafts that she saw here, and decided to create the first shop and handicrafts factory in the country. And the name was Aquios, which is Sojka, the last name of my father and my uncle, backwards. And why do I tell you this? Because my mother, when she came to Ecuador, she needed to earn her life, and she started working in Aquios. And what did she do? She did a lot of handicrafts. Like if she would have been an Indian from Ecuador,
yeah.
Right? So here you can see some of the handicrafts she created. And in Aquios, she met a lot of artists that later became famous, like one that's called Osvaldo Guayasamín or Eduardo Kingman, and they introduced my mother into the pre-Columbian symbols, the Andean art, that later on she incorporated to her art. So that's why it's important.
Beautiful.
One other thing is that, I told you my mother and my father, I thought they were the generation of silence because they never talked about their experience. We, the children, were the generation of questions. We always asked, we were very curious, never obtained answers. So Gabriela, my daughter, she is the third generation that answers the questions. And so here in this third floor, we can see an exhibit of that my daughter created very quickly. It's just an exhibition about her identity, her roots, her reflections about her ancestors. It's called No Man's Imprints. Right. And maybe since we don't have much time, we can go to this
Sure.
room.
I'm just going to show them.
Oh, sure. This last room is devoted to my father, Hans Steinitz, and to the righteous among the nations. I told you already about Jose Ignacio Burbano and about this man, Manuel Antonio Muñoz Borrero, both diplomats that helped the Jewish people and that must be recognized as righteous among the nations. This is also the family library. And we have here books about the Holocaust, about art, in many languages, all the languages of the family, like English, French, Spanish, German, Czech, even Hebrew. I think that one of the reasons why I decided to open this house to the public was because I was so grateful, the same as my parents, with the Ecuadorian people that were so helpful to the Jewish. Uh, Many countries, they closed their doors and didn't allow more immigration, right, from Jewish people. But Ecuador always was open, with open arms, received the Jewish. And also, I have to mention the very important heritage of the Jewish towards Ecuador, right? In all aspects, I think the cultural aspect and science and business, etc. So yes, the main, I think, emotion that I feel and that made me create this house was gratefulness.
Wow,
Mhm.
beautiful. Should we sit down maybe? Because I think the audio is better here
Oh, okay.
than in the computer. So we can do questions here. if that's
Sure,
all right.
but I wanted Gabi to.
She can also do it from there, but I want to be able to hear. that,
Sure,
so.
whatever. So we can sit down.
Yeah.
I wanted Gabi to invite everybody to this house.
Yes. Just get. You can talk to Gabby. She can hear you. You wanna?
Oh, Gabi? I cannot hear her.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. So please invite everybody to our to our house museum. Uh-huh.
Sure. So I will share with you. Yes, if you come to Ecuador, of course you're always welcome to come to this house and discover many other things we have here, and maybe enjoy some little strudel that my mother makes. And here in this image, you can see it. This is our social media where you can find us, our phones, our emails. If you want to write us, yes, you can find us on Facebook and our website. And also, if you want to support us, you're very much welcome. This is the information where you can, if you want to make a donation, you can have this. You can scan this QR code. And perhaps we have a couple of questions here. Maybe you want to answer with me, Anita, Mami. How many Jews currently live in Quito and in Ecuador?
Like, I think all in all, 500 Jews. That's all in whole Ecuador. Maybe 180 families. Because I mentioned before, there were like 4,000 that came from 38 to 1950, but people have died. A lot of Jewish students traveled to the States or to Israel, and they to study abroad, right? And they never came back. I have an example. It's my sister. She lives now in the States. So a lot have not come back. And although there was some immigration from Argentina and from Chile in the 70s, I think that right now there is very little immigration. Mm-hmm. So there's few Jews, but the Jewish community is very dynamic. They're very active, and they do a lot of I don't know, of activities, and they're very close together. Uh-huh.
Another question is, if Ecuador welcomed Jewish immigrants, why did Borrero lose his job for giving out visas?
Well, I think that one of the things is that the Ecuadorians welcomed always the Jewish people, but for a while the Ecuadorian government was close to Germany. Uh-huh.
And the last question is there a synagogue in Quito?
Of course. I think that you filmed the synagogue, right,
Yes.
Dani?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place. It's in in the outskirts, let's say, of the city of Quito, in the northern part. And for me, it reminds you a little bit of Jerusalem. It's very luxurious. It's very beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And they also ask, is there a Jewish section of the city, or do you live within the communities?
I don't think there is a Jewish section. I think there were two neighborhoods in Quito where a lot of Jewish people lived when they came to Ecuador. One was called Mariscal, and there were the rich Jews, and the other was La Floresta, where we are now, where Jewish people from middle class, settled, like my parents. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we have comments like they like our floor, a beautiful home and a lovely memorial to your parents. Thank you. All diplomats who issued visas lost their jobs. Sukihara in Japan, Sousa Mendes in Portugal, etc., because they did it on their own, out of goodness, in opposition to official government policy. These are the comments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are no more questions. So
one of the questions that I do just want to throw out there is a question about English translations in the museum. Is that something, if folks were to come visit, can they read, will they be able to read and access all the material in English?
Well, I don't know. We don't have much, information in English here, but Gabi and me, we speak English fluently, so
Right.
and we are always here.
So you'll get, if you go, you'll get a personal tour, you'll get some strudel,
Exactly.
which, listen, had I known about the strudel, we could have sent some out to everyone.
Well, Gabi, she was very close to her grandmother, and she learned a lot of her, about art with my mother, but also she learned a lot about creating delicious pastry. Gabi is an expert. And so, yes.
This is all very good to know. We have someone in the chat who says they'll be in Ecuador in March. So
Wonderful.
look out for Chet, who will be in Quito in March. Folks have commented on how beautiful the home is, how wonderful this presentation is. Someone commented about the floor, which is gorgeous. Can you talk a little bit about the floor? Is there any story to the beautiful wood floor in the house?
Can you say that last question again?
Is there any story to the beautiful wood floor that you have throughout the house?
Well, much about the floor. I have to say that the floors are all original. I never changed anything. When I remodeled the house, the main things I did is change, the electrical connections, or the water pipes, things like that. But I didn't change anything else. So all the floors are original. Mm-hmm.
Wow, they're a piece of art in themselves.
Thank you. We did not. I thought we wouldn't have much time, so I didn't show you one room that I would like to show you now. This room is devoted to victims of all genocides, because the Holocaust was a genocide, right? But there are continuously many genocides in our world. So we thought we have to remember all victims of all genocides. This is a closet or a wardrobe, and we thought memory is like a wardrobe, a universal wardrobe, where we keep facts of the past. And so here we are keeping symbolically clothes that belong to different victims of genocides. For example, this one is from a victim of the Armenian genocide. Here we have something from a victim of the Christian genocide by the Nazis from Cambodia. In Rwanda, the Tutsis were killed by the Hutus, right? So we remember this with this dress. Here is Guatemala genocide. These toys show you that in some countries in Asia, the little girls that are born they are killed because of the fact they are girls. Here is the Indo-American genocide. Here is the Gypsy genocide by the Nazis. Well, we thought we have to remember this, and the idea is that if you put yourself in the clothes of somebody, or it's, you know, that what you say currently normally is you put yourself in the shoes of other people, then you might feel empathy for the other, and you could feel less violence, less fear, less hate, and that might be the beginning to the construction of peace in the world, which is one of our aims. So this room reminds you of the genocides, and it also contains a lot of gifts that people have given us. For example, here, this is a sculpture that's called Hiroshima. It was made by a friend of mine, Enrique Hermida, where after he visited Hiroshima. It's made with the roots of a tree. Right. Here you have some mandalas that were created by another friend, Maria Judith Hurtado. She's a philosopher, but she's also an artisan. And she wanted to represent an harmonic society. So a peaceful society. Mm-hmm.
If you want to let Jason, because he can't hear me, if there's other questions, I've seen them come up. Feel free to ask.
I can hear you, Dani.
You can hear me.
Surprise. So there haven't been too many questions, but especially in this room, there have been a few questions about your family's story in the camps during the Holocaust. One of the questions specifically is about how you learned a bit more about your mother losing the baby, especially with knowing how she mostly kept silent. And also, if you ever discovered what your parents went through, are those things that you could talk about?
Well, I could tell you how I learned about my mother's having had this baby. It's a little crazy. I was waiting for Gabi, right, to be born. I was pregnant with Gabi, and we knew she was going to be a little girl. So my mother asked me, how are you going to name her? And I love the name Gabriela, right? I've always loved that name. And so I told her, I want to call her Gabriela. And my mother's reaction was very surprising. She began to cry. I didn't understand a thing until she explained that the little baby that she had in the camp and that died shortly after had been named by her Gabriela Evelyn. So it was crazy. She asked me to keep that name, so that's why my daughter's name is Gabi. But
Wow.
that's how I learned about it.
And
It's really amazing.
You didn't
I
know
never
that.
knew about it.
Wow.
Of course not. So it's really a strange story.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Someone is complimenting your English and how perfect it is, and is wondering what your background is. Where were you educated? How did your English get so great?
I don't know. It's so great because I'm forgetting my English. But actually, I studied at the American school in Quito, and after I finished high school, I was living in the States for 3 years. In Florida, I studied in Florida State University. And from there, I went to France, to Paris. Right. So that's why I speak English. But I have to say that when I came back to Ecuador, you know, I stopped talking English. So I'm forgetting it a little bit.
That's amazing. It's such a great example of spending time around the world and what you can take from your experience doing that. That's so special.
Thank you.
Other than going to the museum, which obviously we all need to do, there are clearly so many beautiful pieces of art that are all over the house and so many great artifacts. Are there other places that people could get sneak peeks of those things? Do you have any of those, any photos that are a bit closer up on your website or on your social media? Are those places that people could learn a little bit more about the art in the house?
Well, we have a web, right? Our web, and I think that Gabi could tell you the address of the web. We have also all the different social media that Facebook and Instagram and everything. I think Gabi is more an expert of that than I am, and I think there are also some videos that you can find in YouTube, etc. So you can find more about our house in the internet. Yes.
Terrific. So there's just a taste, and the slide that Gabi put up earlier is a great way for all of us to get a chance to get a closer
Right.
look.
Exactly.
Yes, we're mostly active in Facebook, and maybe you want me to show you again the picture of the social media.
Sure, that's perfect. This way, for all of us who would love to check it out again, and in our follow-up email, everyone, we'll make sure to share this information as well, so that you can make sure to check out all of this information and see any of the material.
I saw two interesting questions. Can I answer quickly?
Of course, of course.
Did you ever discover what your parents went through the war? So in fact, the only things we discovered about them is through documents, and they never really wrote about it. But I also did a lot of research. I went to Europe, to the Czech Republic, and to Germany, and there in the archives I found a lot of interesting things. The list of deportation, of their transport and things like that. And yes, the first husband was killed, perhaps during the death marches after Auschwitz was evacuated. And how far away is the center of the Earth? The equator. From here, we're a couple of kilometers away from what is supposed to be the center of the Earth. Is about a half an hour ride from here to there's a big monument of the middle of the world, and yeah, so we are close, very close to that. Thank you very much.
Terrific. This is so beautiful. Thank you so much for welcoming us into your home, your museum. I think this is just so special, and yes, there might have been a few technical hiccups, but at the end of the day, we're there live. This is not just a video recording, and I think that's just so very, very cool that we were all able to share this experience together. Lots of things rolling into the chat, lots of thank yous and beautiful, inspiring stories. So again, a really, really special thank you to Dani, Anita, and Gabi. This has just been very special. And Dani, our friend from Mallorca, happens to currently be traveling the world, and so we get to see him pop up around the world right now. And hope let's all follow in his footsteps and travel around the world as well. Though thankfully we're able to do that virtually right now. So folks, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with today?
I was just going to jump in and say that I was incredibly well received, and the welcome has been so warm by Anita and Gabi. For those out there thinking of traveling, my parents came down from New York, New Jersey, and the first thing we did was come to this house. And my mom, who's a Jewish educator, was blown away by the story. And so we kind of thought, how cool would it be to help get this incredible story and this beautiful house out to as many people as possible. So highly recommend coming here and then going to the Galapagos. which is what we did. And also I want to share with everyone on the call that, we went to Shabbat here, which was really beautiful. We visited Rabbi Tomer, who's with Chabad. He has a Chabad house here that mainly catered to Israeli backpackers and those who go to Chabad all over the world. And then we went to this incredible, that you were speaking about, Jewish community center that was built 20 years ago by the German Jews that came here and started fresh, like Gabi's grandmother and Anita's mother. And it's an incredible center that has a synagogue, has a pool, has a football field, or soccer as we know it in the States. And it really is impressive to see such a vibrant Jewish life. Granted, the community has been getting small through the years, but it is incredible. There is a Jewish day school called Albert Einstein, also started 20 years ago, that, get this, has 60 Jewish students out of 600 students. So only 10% are Jewish, but it's such a high-end school that a lot of the Ecuadorian families who are not Jewish would like to send their children there.
I think it's the best school in Ecuador.
The best school in Ecuador?
I do think so.
Unbelievable. And they teach Hebrew, they teach Jewish culture. Obviously, if it's more religious, with the Jewish students who want a bar mitzvah, then they would go to the synagogue, which is like across the street. It's like very close. So yeah, we're very excited to keep connecting with Jewish communities all over Ecuador, especially in Quito. Also, I want to say thanks to Gabi Nita. We're going to be screening Chueta Island, our documentary film about the Jews of Mallorca, here this Sunday for the local community to come. So it's really, really incredible, the bridge building that's going on here. And so thank you to Jason.
It also sounds like that even though the Jewish community is very small, because of the school, that everyone gets to learn a lot about the Jewish community, which is, I think, an exciting thing for us to hear and know, which is fantastic.
It's true, right? That there's a lot of sharing.
Yes. And we have visitors, from different schools, but a lot of visitors from the Einstein School. We have a very good connection with the community, with the Einstein School. They have invited me to give lectures there.
Oh, wow.
So yes.
Two answers to questions that I saw pop up. It's called Colegio Albert Einstein, meaning sounds like college Albert Einstein, but it's not a college.
That's Spanish.
It's Spanish.
Right.
Colegio in Spanish is school.
Exactly.
That was a confusion. We saw it recently. And then the other thing, we don't have time to get into today because we're closing, plus we're not the experts, but there is an expert here who's Israeli named Yaron Avitov, who has done an incredible study about conversos who've come from Spanish Inquisition and hiding in the southern mountains of Ecuador in an area called La Loja. So that's something to, a little teaser to whet your appetite for next time to continue learning.
Right.
We all have lots of Googling to go do, travel plans to make. This is so terrific and very special. Thank you all so much for your time. Everyone who's joining us from all around the world. I see some folks were here from Hawaii. Thank you for being here. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. And we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for having us today here. We're very, very happy.
Yes, and we're sorry if we did not answer all of the questions here, but hopefully we will meet one day in person or another Zoom, who knows. And yes, thank you so much, all of you, for inviting us and for being here.
Please stay in touch.
Right.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.